No?
All right, good evening, good afternoon, everybody. Sorry I don't have my normal Denzel Washington voice. I think everybody's kind of getting this little bug going around, so. Public service announcement, wash your hands and cough into your elbows. Call to order. Let's do a roll call. And as you guys, I just want to make sure that we duly noted that this is a joint meeting.
Correct.
With both boards the way it should be, and hopefully this is the way it continues to move forward. And let's call to order, and then we'll let the Lorain Board of Education call to order as well, and go through the roll call. So we'll go to roll call first. Let's go roll call. Mr. Coffin?
Present.
Mrs. O'Brien?
Present.
Dr. Sampson? Present. Dr. Solis? Mrs. Zander?
Present.
I'd like to call to order this special meeting for Lorain City School Board on Tuesday, March 3rd. Roll call, please.
Mr. Ballard?
Here.
Ms. Azaria? Here. Ms. Johnson? Mr. Sturgill?
Here.
Mr. Williams?
Here.
Pledge of allegiance, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. Approval of the ADC agenda? Motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All right. Mr. Coffin?
Yes.
O'Brien?
Yes.
Sampson, yes. Dr. Solis? She's absent. Mrs. Zander?
Yes.
Approval of minutes? Motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All right, Mr. Coffin?
Yes.
O'Brien?
Yes.
Sampson, yes. And Mrs. Zander?
Yes.
And we're going to move to public comment after the board. Do you guys have any?
We're good. We're ready to move to a hearing of the public.
Okay. All right, public comment?
And I would like to add, so we had an incident here in Lorain over the last week with one of our elementary schools, and we actually had one of our young people that were deported. And we've been meeting with the community and the police chief here in Lorain, and he's come today, and we've asked him to kind of come and give us an overview and kind of explain what has happened. If you'd come to the mic, sir. Chief McCann, you can either come here and have a seat, or you can use the cordless. Thank you for coming, sir.
Good.
Please.
As many of you know, we had an incident that appeared to start in Lorain involving one of our school children and her mother. I was made aware of this almost a week later, and immediately we started taking action to look at what happened and what's going on. And I contacted Mr. Ballard pretty much immediately, and Mr. Ring. Through some research that I did myself, because it's such a sensitive issue in Lorain, especially in Lorain, and I did some research with the police chief of Bay Village and with the Border Patrol in Sandusky Post. And I'm going to lay out the facts as they are right now with the incident and where it started and how it culminated into Lorain City Schools. There was a traffic stop in Bay Village of a male and a female. We'll just keep names out of it, male and a female. The male ended up being arrested by Bay Village PD through a order of deportation from a federal judge. The male became uncooperative and was taken into custody. Bay Village PD contacted the Border Patrol for further guidance and more information to try to help identify the male and the female. And Border Patrol identified both the male and female as being illegal immigrants who were ordered to appear in court in 2017 for a hearing. Both male and female did not show up for the court hearing, so they were, basically there was a deportation order posted in absentia, meaning they were not there, they didn't show up, and the judge ordered their removal from the country in 2017. Fast forward to Tuesday, when they got stopped. Both parties were transported to Port Clinton, Ohio, where actually the Sandusky post of the Border Patrol. They did their paperwork there, and the female advised the agents that she has a 9-year-old little girl in school in Lorain City Schools. The agents and the supervisor said they can do one of two things. We can assist you, and we can get your daughter, and you guys can remain together. And they really elaborated that. They wanted them to offer to remain together. Or they can assist her with finding a custodial guardian for her daughter until all this stuff is cleaned up at her home country. So the mom, as I think I would if it was my son or daughter, elected to go to the school and get her daughter out of school and keep her daughter with her. So the mother was taken to the school by 2 agents who were in plain clothes and a plain vehicle. Nothing was marked as Border Patrol. And they told me they did this just to make sure there was no additional stress or no additional bad outcome by being in officers in full uniform in the schools. The mom willingly went in with them and asked for their child to be removed from the school, and she signed the child out, and they all went back to Port Clinton, Ohio. I talked to several agents. I asked them different times, different questions, and I have no reason to doubt what they told me is the facts of what happened. And I don't believe that there was any wrongdoing by the agents. Remember, they have a job to do too, and sometimes we don't like to see the job they have to do, but it's still a job they have to do. The agent in charge called me back yesterday and again today, and they said their policy is they do not and will not, unless there's some emergency that's so egregious that they have to go into a school or a place of worship. They will not go into a place of worship or a school to remove anybody unless there's something really big going on. So I have no reason to doubt what they told me. I called the Bay Village Police Department, the police chief, and he sent me a copy of the reports and said the same thing. Their officers encountered these 2 in a motor vehicle traffic stop, and this is where it culminated into. So I have no reason to doubt anything that was said to me during this investigation that I did, and I don't believe that we, you, or anybody else could have done anything different to change the situation.
So I would only add that I thought it was important that the chief come and share with us, because there is a lot of unrest and uneasiness in the community of what's going on. So I wanted you all to hear it directly and let you know that anytime a child is in our custody or in our buildings, they're in our custody. And we're going to do everything we can to make sure we treat those children just like I would treat Mark or Mariah. But because of the way this incident happened, and a mom was there, we had no other choice than to release the child to the mother. But I just wanted to clear it up that it was Border Patrol, and we've not changed our policy. We are still the same as we've always been, and we're still going to make sure that we look after our families here in the district. And I just wanted to get the facts out so you guys aren't hearing it could be another agency or something like that. It was Border Patrol.
Yes. Mr. Ballard makes a good point. Our policy remains the same as it was for the last 5 years. And just a nutshell of our policy is, it's the federal government's job, through their agents and enforcement bureaus, to enforce immigration. It is not the local authorities' job to enforce immigration. However, when we are involved in investigations involving criminal misconduct, and the criminal happens to be an illegal immigrant, we have no choice but to take action and notify the Border Patrol. We really have no choice. Just besides the part of them breaking the law, part of getting grants for additional police officers and other stuff, we're bound by those grants that we will comply with the law, or we have a chance to pay back grants over $100,000, $200,000 grants. So we do not go out, I'm going to be very clear about this, we do not go out and look and round up illegal immigrants. We do not do that. That is not our job. We only deal with it when they come into contact with us, when we're dealing with criminal investigations and serious matters under investigation. So that policy has not changed. So if you have any questions on that, I'll be happy to.
So, and I would just, and thank you for that. So what this has forced us to do is to go back and refresh and look at our policies and make sure that they're current, if they should be adjusted at all. And we will make sure that we're communicating with our buildings, and Mr. Ring is right on point with this with us and making sure everyone knows what those protocols are as we refresh through this. Would you like to add anything, Greg? Or?
No, I think not having to deal with this on a regular basis when it does occur, it brings you to the point where you need to consider all of the practices that you have, to take a look at those and make sure that you're in compliance, that what you're doing is fair and compassionate. And I'm confident to say that we were. I think we did all the right things, and I think Chief is agreeing with that, and Mr. Ballard as well. But I think, it does create some urgency for us administratively, as well as with our teaching staff, to make sure that we review those policies and that we're doing the right things and following the book. So this has encouraged me to make sure that we follow up with our staff to make sure that we're doing all the right things that our policy dictates that we do.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief. Thank you. Is there anything else from the public?
Additional public comment? Okay.
I think there's one coming.
Is there one coming? Okay. Sorry about that. Need a mic? Why don't you get a mic?
It's going to feedback. If he wants to get that speaker.
I'm Barbie Washington. A question about, I apologize if I misspeak or use incorrect terms. Our Hispanic population, we're talking about this incident that just occurred. Also during Mr. Ring's listening tour, one of the teachers brought up that there was an issue with newcomers possibly not graduating because of the inability to sit for the end of course exams. They need to sit for 2, I guess, to graduate. I would like to know, and maybe you don't have the answer right now, but are we working on that as a district to be able to help those children graduate on time?
If we have any administrators from the high school that could speak more directly to that, then I'm not sure I see any here. But it has been something we discussed, and we'll continue to look at. I know that they're getting a lot of support. The students are getting a lot of support, but in the end, we have to do what the Department of Education requires us to do, and those students will have to take those tests.
Thank you. That if the requirement is factual, that they have to sit for 2 end of course exams, if they meet every other requirement, would you consider allowing them to walk? I know like when the old Lorain High School closed, that there were some seniors that still needed to pass the proficiency test, I believe that's what they were called at the time, and they were allowed to participate in graduation. They didn't actually get their diploma until after they met the requirements, but they were allowed to participate. I'm hoping that's something you would consider.
I believe it's past practice that yes, that we would allow that. So we would just look at what's been done in the past in those situations, Mrs. Washington, and we would be agreeable to that.
Thank you. we spoke earlier, but I would like to address this publicly. I feel like we are still failing our families. Today, I guess there was an incident at the high school, and there was a decision for the dinner program to be closed. I was in the cafeteria for a prom to dawn meeting, and there were no building administrators there except the one that was in our meeting. There were, I think there's 15 administrators there. There was no safety staff assigned. The parents, including myself, had to open the door to tell the little kids and the mom with the 5 small kids that we're not serving dinner today. There was no sign on the door. There was no principal, no deans, no chiefs, no one. I don't believe there was anything set out on the Facebook, Twitter, anything. We just had hungry kids showing up for us to tell them there's no dinner today. We have to do better. So changes, there's a lot of changes happening. It seems like some building administrators are putting their foot on the gas. The high school is one. We got a notice that there's going to be a parent meeting to discuss schedules, but not just schedule. If we know that there's going to be multiple changes to building leadership, I ask that someone says, please pump the brakes, so we're not making all of these changes and then bringing in new people to change it again. It's very discouraging to me as a parent, and I'm sure to teachers and other staff members as well. My last thing is the CEO search. I know that there was one search firm that submitted their request to help us. I ask that you, as ADC and board members, to work together to find our next CEO. I believe that you guys did that for Mr. Ring. I don't think we paid for that. You guys did a good job. He's here participating with the community, with the parents, with ADC and the board, which I appreciate. Thank you for that. We don't want to waste another $25,000 on a search firm, so I do ask that you consider just working together and move forward, especially because we hope that state control will return.
Thank you, Mrs. Washington. Real quick, hold on. Before you sit down, Mrs. Washington, I have a quick question for you. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't catch the date with the food. What day was that?
That happened
Was that
today, just today.
This evening?
Yes.
Okay, so there was nobody was available, there was nobody
I guess
there?
there was a fight at the high school,
Okay,
and there was a decision made to cancel the dinner program for the day.
so is it just canceled for today because of an incident?
Yes.
Or,
Yeah, just today, there was about 24 kids that didn't have dinner
okay, so it will be active?
that I saw.
It'll be active tomorrow, is that what we're saying? Or continue to move forward?
I hope so.
We'll be back
I don't
tomorrow.
know.
Okay. Will that be communicated somehow?
Yep.
Okay. And hopefully, if there's an incident that occurs at the high school, there's official communication that goes out for when stuff like that is paused or canceled moving forward. So thank you for bringing that up.
I ask you to please consider doing something different. If there's an incident at the high school, take care of the kids that were involved in the incident, clear it out if you need to do that for safety, ask the other people outside to wait until it's clear, and then open the doors for the kids to eat their food. We have to do something different. We can't not feed kids because a couple kids decide not to follow the rules. It's not okay.
Thanks for the clarification. Anybody else? Okay.
Through the chair.
Nothing further from the public? I'm going to seek a motion to suspend the order for the rest of our meeting so we can go into the presentation.
Okay?
Get a motion?
Presentation or executive session?
I think we're going to see the presentation before we go into executive session.
Motion to suspend the order and go right into the presentation?
Second.
Roll call?
Mr. Williams?
Yes.
Ms. Nazario? Yes. Mr. Ballard?
Yes.
And Mr. Sturgill?
Yes. Motion's carried. Your turn.
All right, so we're going to have a presentation from Finding Leaders. School district put out a RFP for the search firm for the next CEO, and Finding Leaders submitted their information. And at this juncture, if the technology is willing, we're going to have a quick presentation.
And out of respect to the presenter, I'm going to come around and sit right there in the front so I can look straight ahead.
And you probably need the wireless mic, I'm sure. Okay.
Yes. Well, I can do that. Thank you.
My name is Steve Farnsworth, and I'm here representing Finding Leaders, which is a firm that offers search services for superintendents and treasurers throughout the state of Ohio, and especially in Northeast Ohio. Not only that, we offer leadership services for professional development for administrators and for board members. So we do a lot of leadership activity. Just briefly, a little bit about myself. I was a teacher for 10 years, principal for 5 years, a superintendent for 26 years in 4 different school districts. And since retirement, I've been doing consulting services with either boards of education and occasionally ADCs. So that's me. A little bit about, just first of all, I want to thank you, every elected member of the Board of Education. I want to thank the ADC. Your work here is going to be very, very important. Thank you for that important work. I also want to congratulate Tia Kearney for being appointed as treasurer, and Greg Ring for the interim CEO position. And just so you all know, Greg Ring is one of the most respected educational leaders in the state of Ohio. And I know he's doing a great job here for you. The most important thing I want to say today is that we're all working toward the same end. We all have the same goal, and that is we want to improve the lives of our children. And I think they're all our children, no matter what district they're in, and it's very important, the work that we're all doing. I think we'll get right into the presentation. There'll be a time for you to ask questions, but if you have a burning question as I go through it, feel free to just ask it. So the team, if you choose to go with Finding Leaders, the team that'll be working with you is the owner of the company, Finding Leaders, and that's Paul Pendleton, and then myself. We have many other consultants that are available that we will be using to help us recruit. And one of the primary reasons for hiring a search firm is we know lots of people throughout the state of Ohio and beyond. We have a lot of contacts throughout the state that will enable us to recruit a person, a great leader with qualifications that will fit the profile here that we develop in Lorain. And that's really one of the primary reasons to go with the search firm. The other reason is to use the process that we use, and I'll get into that in just a moment. The important thing about the process is that it engages the staff and the community in a very meaningful way. And in this case, if you're the ADC, you can also involve the Board of Education in a very meaningful way to come up with a leader that we can all agree on that'll take us forward and improve what we're doing. So how critical is this decision? I'd say it's really, really critical. Having been a superintendent for 26 years, I know how critical it is. And the CEO is in a little different position, obviously, than a superintendent, and I think even more critical than for this particular leader. This person will have to improve the academic performance of our children. This person will need to find a way to engage the staff and to help them collaborate not only with one another, but also with the leadership in the district. This leader will have to find a way to generate community support and trust, to work collaboratively with both organizations, the ADC and the Board of Education. And one more thing, this person will need to persuade the General Assembly, or help persuade, to pass laws that make sense for the Lorain City Schools and for its students. So the process. In March, this month, if you choose to go with Finding Leaders, one of the first things we do is we talk with the ADC, we ask them some very critical questions so that we can do the advertising necessary and so that we know the kind of recruiting that we need to do. Those critical decisions are extremely important, and we would need to do that very soon. We would begin advertising right away, and the advertising could be statewide, it could be nationwide. We offer an intergalactic search, but nobody's taken us up on that yet. So, also in March, we can do a brochure if you wish. In the past 5 years, rarely have we done a brochure because everything's online and it's not really necessary. But if you want one, we can do it. We conduct stakeholder focus groups. Those would be done in March and in April. And in those focus groups, we bring in members of the staff, both classified and certified. We bring in administrators, both from the central office and from the building level. We bring in community groups. We bring in parents, non-parents. If you wish, we can bring in the mayor's office and any other group that you think it's important. And in this case, one of the focus groups probably ought to be, in my view, the Board of Education. We want to know what the ADC wants in the way of the next leader. We also want to know what the Board of Education wants in the way of the next leader. And one of the first things we say to every focus group when we meet, we tell the participants, you're not here to make the decision. You're here to offer input. The ADC has to make the decision, but they want to know what you think. They want to know what kind of characteristics you want in the next leader. So we have a series of questions that we ask each group, and then ultimately we summarize what we've heard. We look for strands, the same things that were said in each and every group, and then we summarize those and we make a report to the ADC. The deadline, the application deadline, we are proposing to be May 15th. The Finding Leaders will do the screening and the interviews, the preliminary interviews, the week of May the 18th. And then we would report to the ADC the list of semifinalists. Typically, that would be 6 people, 6 candidates. It might be 5, it might be 7, but typically it's 6. And then that's the date, on May the 29th, that we would do that. We would present the summary of the focus groups to you at the time when we present you the 6 semifinalists. The ADC would do the first round interviews. We would communicate with each and every candidate that you're going to interview. We would set it all up. So all you have to do is come in. We'll even have sample questions if you wish, or you can have your own questions. But we will review with you the kinds of questions you're allowed to ask and the kind of questions you're not allowed to ask. So during that, those 6, we'd have 3 one night and 3 the next night. That would be done the week of June the 1st. After that, after you've selected, after you have interviewed those 6, then you would choose finalists. And typically you would choose 2 finalists. The next week, you would do due diligence, as we call it. So you would call the districts of those 2 finalists, You would find out what people say about them. You may talk with presidents of the respective unions. You may talk with board members in those districts. And we'll have suggested activities. Sometimes you might even want to visit those districts. That's totally up to you. But we'll guide you through that. The ADC and the stakeholder finalist interviews would be conducted the week of June the 15th. That's what we're projecting. These are all projected dates. We can change those. We can massage them to meet your needs. Finding Leaders emphasizes to all that the final decision rests with the ADC. I want to say that again because when we get into this part, the stakeholder interview part, we're going to get a lot of input from a lot of people. And we make sure that those people know they're there to provide the input. They're not there to make the decision. We just say that over and over again. And there's nothing worse than asking people for their input if they think that they're making the final decision, and then it goes a different direction. So we make that very clear. So now I'll talk to you about this process. This is the group interview process that I'm talking about. So what we do is we ask the Academic Distress Commission to sit at the back of the room. Your part in this first hour is to watch and listen, not to ask questions. We have one person, one of the finalists come in the first night and the other finalists come in the second night. So what we do is we ask for you to identify stakeholders. By you, I'm talking about the school district. You can do it as the ADC or you can ask the district to do it. But we'll need members from the community. We'll need administrators, and sometimes districts like to have students involved. We'll have staff involved. We might have the political leaders of the community involved. You get the idea. So these are the stakeholders, and there'll be roughly 10 for each group. So we get all them together around 5 o'clock, late afternoon, and we give them their instructions. And their instructions are to come together and think about questions that they might want to ask the finalist. We'll also have sample questions for them. We'll ask that group of 10, let's say it's a group of teachers, you pick one of your 10 to be the spokesperson for your group. That person will sit at the table, and that person will be the only person out of the 10 that will be able to ask the candidate questions. In the same way with the community groups, the same way with the student group, the same way with administrators, etc. So those groups, those stakeholder groups have an opportunity to talk together for about a half an hour, ask to create some questions that they think will allow everybody to hear the answer to find out, is this the right person for this particular school district at this particular time? So the Academic Distress Commission sits at the back. They don't ask any questions. They just listen. They look at body language, and they learn. And then after the first hour, after all those questions, and we ask one at a time as they go around the room, ask one at a time from each of the spokespersons. After that hour, the candidate leaves and takes a tour of the district. Somebody will take that person a tour of the district. Typically, they'll have their spouse with them. And they'll go through the community, and just for an hour, they'll be driving around. During that hour, the Academic Distress Commission will be meeting with the stakeholders, all of those stakeholders. And the facilitators, we, Finding Leaders, will facilitate that conversation. And what the Academic Distress Commission will want to know from the stakeholders, did this candidate, what did you think about this candidate? Not whether you think he or she should be the next CEO, but what did you think about? Do you think this person would fit into Lorain? Do you think this person would do a good job in our school system? What were your impressions? Like that. So that conversation would happen at that point. After that hour, the stakeholders go home, and now the the ADC will be having a final interview with that particular candidate for however long it takes. And sometimes it's off-site, sometimes it's at a restaurant, sometimes it's right there. They'll have to decide that. But for the next however long, the Academic Distress Commission will be talking with that finalist and they'll be having their final interview. Finding leaders will be involved, if you wish, in every single interview. Not that we'll be asking questions, but we'll be there to help in case help is needed. The next day, the other finalist comes in, and it's the exact same thing, except they don't have, the stakeholders don't have to come in at 5, they can come in at 5:30 because they already know the drill, and they'll do the same thing. First hour, they'll ask the questions. It'll be the same questions that they asked the day before. Second hour, there'll be a tour for the candidate, and there'll be a conversation between the ADC and the stakeholders, and then the ADC will have the final interview. After that second interview, then the ADC will make the selection. Just what I think. Okay. That'll be June the 26th, if you want to go with our timeline. And the contract will be finalized. Here's the thing about the contract. The finalists will have been told the salary range, the benefits, etc. We'll have all that information because we will have asked you those important decisions that you have to make. And part of that will be contractual. Salary range, benefits, all of that, length of contract, and when it will start. And we will communicate all of those decisions that y'all make with each of the 2 finalists. And we will ask the 2 finalists if the contract that's offered is consistent with what we told you, and you are the one selected, will you accept the position? And both of the finalists will have said yes prior to the final interviews. So you don't have to worry about somebody backing out at the end. Okay? So the new CEO is employed and introduced to the community by June the 30th. The new CEO contract begins August 1 or earlier if possible. And Finding Leaders has a written transition plan which we will give to the new CEO and to the ADC and to the Board of Education so that you can have a transition so that you have every chance of having this CEO be successful. The final thoughts. This process has been used successfully for many years and in many communities, usually obviously with boards of education. However, we did work with the Youngstown City Schools, and that search went very well. Sometimes circumstances indicate that this process needs to be modified a bit. So in Youngstown, we didn't do the stakeholder kind of interviews that I just described to you. I would recommend that you do it. I think the more engagement you have with the community, the more likely it is that your next CEO will be successful, because he or she will have that support. Also, selecting an outstanding leader is very, very important. I think you can do that without a search firm. I think with a search firm, you're more likely to set that person up for success because of the process that we would use, my opinion. And it's engagement that's really, really important. And if you do this, I think you should listen very carefully and seriously consider all the input that you get from the Board of Education, from the community, from students, you know, from everybody. Consider it, listen to it, read the summary of those focus groups, and take it seriously, and then you'll be in a good position to select the right leader with that profile. House Bill 70. It's uncertain. We don't know what's going to happen, right? I don't know if anybody knows what's going to happen. East Cleveland did something that was interesting. The ADC selected an outstanding leader with input from many, including the Board of Education. After a year, the contract of the CEO was modified to say that if House Bill 70 goes away, the CEO will become the superintendent of the district. That's one way to deal with it. It's not the only way, but it's one way. In the packets that I put at your place, there are brief professional biographies, not only mine, but also of Paul Pendleton's. There's a suggested timeline that we just went over. There's a checklist of those critical decisions that I referenced. There's a scope and sequence. There's a recent search list, all the searches that we've done recently, and contact information where you're free to contact any one of those and ask, how did the search go? Was it helpful, etc. And you also see the Finding Leaders proposal and the overview of services in response to your request for proposals. I just said, we recently, Paul and I, assisted the Youngstown City Schools. We found an outstanding CEO, several of them actually, and they selected one that was really outstanding, in Justin Jennings. That's going well. We would love to assist you find the best leader that will best fit your unique circumstances here in Lorain. I end with this. Timing is important. We must begin very soon. You must begin if you choose to do it on your own. We have a guarantee, a one-year guarantee. We guarantee the search will produce a successful candidate for employment by the Academic Distress Commission. What are your questions?
Thanks for the presentation. Just a couple quick questions on my end. Must begin very soon. What's your suggestion on very soon? And then my other question is community input and having community meetings for a district of this size, population, and so forth. How many community meetings can you project that would be adequate?
We'll do as many as you want us to do. In the Youngstown City Schools, if you count the Board of Education and the ADC, we did 12 or maybe 13 altogether. But that really is, it depends on your circumstances. I think we finished that one up, and they decided that we ought to have one more and invite any other community groups that weren't represented in any of the other focus groups. And so we added one to that. And we would do the same thing here.
And who makes up the criteria for community groups? Do you just have open calls for community to come to certain sessions, times, and locations?
So
or do you
typically,
identify specific people?
Yeah, typically when we work with boards of education, we will ask the Board of Education to come up with somebody or some bodies, or unless they want to do it themselves, to identify groups that they think ought to be focus groups. And then let's say it's a business community. Then somebody in the district will send letters to business leaders and invite them on a particular day at a particular time. It's a little easier with staff because they're sort of right there in the district, and it's a little easier to get them together. But it's really important that we get a wide variety of people who might want input into the process.
Okay.
Those are great questions.
And the last one that you said, I started with first, when you said you must start right away.
Yes.
So tell me what right away? Week,
typically-
2 weeks, 3 weeks, what's right away?
I think as soon as you can, you should begin. And the reason for that is we can start advertising. And the advertising will generate some applications and some interest. More importantly, I believe, we will engage our network and let them know that you have a position for the CEO and that we are going to start talking to people throughout the state of Ohio and saying, is there somebody that you know will fit this criteria that might be interested at this particular time? And so both of those things, the advertising and the recruiting, are very, very important. I don't know which one's more important. They're both very important. But we need to get that started right away so people are aware. The successful leader in a district, I think, needs to be recruited oftentimes, because if things are going well in their district and they're happy there, if they see a posting come through, they're not likely going to be all that interested. But if they hear from somebody that may know them and say, this is really a wonderful opportunity, you ought to really take a look at it, oftentimes they'll take a look at it. And if they look deep enough and if it's attractive enough, they likely will apply at that point. So right away, I mean, if you can make a decision within the next 2 weeks, I think that would be really, really important, but the sooner the better. Okay?
Can we talk a little bit about recruitment and
Yes.
advertisement and what that might look like?
Sure. And if you look in your packets, there's a, in the proposal itself, there's a list of advertisements that we do. You decide whether you want it to be at the state level or if you want it to be nationwide. I'm not just kidding about that part. The intergalactic I am, but not the, so you can either do that. You can either do it statewide or beyond. In Youngstown, we ended up with a successful candidate from Michigan, for instance.
And I noticed, because I did look at the list that you provided in the packet, thank you very much for doing that, that, you know, some of the typical superintendent groups and Ohio School Board of Associations and things like that, and when I think about the makeup of this community being, you know, 40% Latino, I didn't see any particular groups, professional groups like Unidos or, you know, some of those. Do you have access to that as well?
Yes. What you would do is, again, each school district is unique, and if this one requires other kinds of advertising, we certainly can do that, and would be willing and glad to do that.
Thank you.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I don't mean to have my back to you. Any other questions? Well, I thank you very much for the opportunity to talk with you, and best wishes to you.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Are you going to reconvene?
I think our next should be able to go into executive session.
Okay.
We don't have anything further.
Okay. So thank you so much. And at this time, we're going to move to executive session. Guys, notice I coughed into my elbow. I'm going to wash my hands here in a second.
Brenda, if you would allow me to approve the minutes of our last meeting.
Go ahead.
So I do need a motion to approve the minutes from February 24th from my board, please.
So moved?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Williams?
Yes.
Ms. Nazario?
Yes.
Mr. Ballard? Mr. Ballard?
Yes.
Mr. Sturgill?
Yes.
Thank you. Randall?
All right, so we're going to move into executive session to consider the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, and compensation of public employees, and discuss pending litigation. The commission may or may not take action upon coming out of executive session. Can we do a roll call?
Motion.
Motion.
So moved. Second.
All right. Mr. Cawthon?
Yes.
O'Brien?
Yes.
Sampson, yes. Solis not here. Xander?
Yes.
All right, excellent. We're going to go to executive session.
And I also need a motion to go into executive session for A2 under employment.
Motion to go into executive session?
Support?
Roll call, please.
Ms. Nazario?
Yes.
Mr. Williams?
Yes.
Mr. Ballard?
Yes.
Mr. Sturgill?
Thank you.
And we would like for the board to be in our executive session as well.
Likewise.
That way it's a joint venture, and I think we're going to head into the library, back here.
Our library?
I do believe so. So we shall return. Executive session, motion.
Motion to, so moved. Second.
All right. Mr. Cawthon? Yes. O'Brien?
Yes.
Sampson? And Xander?
Yes.
Okay. So we exit our executive session with no consideration for appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, or compensation of public employees, and nor to discuss any pending litigation. But I do need water.
Here you go.
Thank you. Appreciate it. So from the ADC side, adjournment, can I get a motion by?
We need to come out as well.
Oh, you need to come out? Go ahead.
Yes,
Sorry.
I need a motion to come out.
Motion to come out of executive session?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Williams?
Yes.
Ms. Nazario?
Yes.
Mr. Sturgill? Mr. Ballard?
Yes. And I think the one last thing that we needed to cover was the second hearing of the public and then our schedule of our next meeting. So
Yep.
are you okay with that?
Absolutely.
Is there a second hearing of the public, please?
Hello, Barbie Washington. I would like to ask if there has been any decision on the changes that we have heard, the deans and the reconstructuring of the building level leadership.
Working on it, and we anticipate some movement on that in the next week or so.
Thank you. The last, I would like to let everyone know that the LEA is doing a fundraiser, scholarship fundraiser. Tickets are $10. Please see a teacher. And the Prom to Dawn Committee is doing a Mama Joe's Pie Bake Sale or sale for Easter. And we also have an online fundraiser. Please support for the children. Thank you.
Anything further for the good? You guys have anything? All right, so our next scheduled meeting will be, I'm sorry, is there another?
I just want to say that I think that we need a CEO or someone from this community or this district. Oh, you can't hear me?
Sorry, is the microphone on?
She's closer now. You're good. We can hear you now.
I just think that we need a CEO or someone from this district or this county. You know, the past 8 years that I've been dealing with Lorain High School and Lorain City Schools with my children, it just seems like it's been going farther and farther down because we've been getting a lot more people from out of state or from other places that don't know our demographic, don't know our community, and they are disjointed from it because they're not a part of it. And when you're a part of something, you are better able to work within it and have better connections with the like the community resources and the parents. And the parents feel comfortable with you in that. And I don't really feel comfortable, and I've never felt comfortable with people that were consistently being brought from other areas into our area. I think that we would do better and blossom from having someone and that would know more about us as a community, not just the job.
Thank you. Anything further from the public? So our next scheduled meeting will be? March
23rd.
9th. I think we're going to get to meet again. We're going to do it on March 9th at, I understand. At 5 in the Media Center at the high school. Anything further for the good? So for my board, I need a motion to adjourn.
A motion to adjourn?
Support?
Roll call?
Ms. Nazario?
Yes.
Mr. Williams?
Yes.
Mr. Ballard?
Yes. Thank you all. This meeting is adjourned for Lorain City School Board. Randall?
All right, motion to adjourn ADC.
So moved?
Second.
Well, Ronnie, Mr. Coughlin,
Yes.
O'Brien,
Yes.
Sampson, yes. Xander?
Yes.
Yes. All right, meeting's adjourned.
Thank you guys for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Safe travels home. Yes, safe travels home.
Try my best. Thank you.
This has been a production of Lorain City Schools TV 20 WLCS.